Today's topic is Flight Planning 101. We are going to go through all of the basics of the flight planning tools that DroneSense offers on our mobile application, talk about some of their limitations, their functionality, as well as what's coming in the future. The things we're going to cover today: the options of flight planning, saving, sharing, and archiving flight plans, and then at the end, we'll open it up to a Q&A and some feedback here. So first and foremost, what are our options? And so in the DroneSense mobile application, we offer three types of flight planning. We offer a mapping and SAR suite, waypoints functionality, as well as points of interest and orbits. And these are all autonomous flight plans that are offered through our mobile application. So starting with mapping missions, we have a couple of different types here. So we have 2D, 3D, or what we would consider SAR type flight paths, with three preset outputs, as well as a completely kind of custom option for you guys to work with. So the first one we're going to discuss today is our Pix4D React preset. So this preset is meant for direct plug-in into Pix4D React. However, this will work with multiple data processing solutions. So this is used for orthomosaic image generation. And what that means, an orthomosaic is just a top-down photo, which is a bunch of individual photos stitched together into one massive image. So this uses a single pass flight pattern, and it's going to give you defaults on speed, altitude, your overlaps, your survey angle, as well as your gimbal angle. For generating an orthomosaic, there's no additional imagery that's necessary. Everything gathered from this autonomous flight plan will give you all the data you need to generate a giant ortho. It's a very simple workflow. And again, like I said at the beginning, this works well with all data processing solutions, not just Pix4D React, but we seem to see React most in public safety. But whether you're using Drone Deploy or Drone Mapper or Maps Made Easy or Raptor Maps or Pix4D, whatever the case may be, there's no additional steps in the workflow to take the data captured from this preset and put it into one of those systems to generate a really good orthomosaic. Now, in our, in the public safety space, the use cases for orthomosaic imagery typically includes damage assessment and then site and scene documentation. Those are kind of our two biggest workflows. Whether we're trying to document a structure fire scene, or maybe a commercial fire scene, or maybe maybe it's an unfortunate homicide scene, whatever the case may be, that's typically where we see the orthomosaic workflows kind of come into play. The next workflow and the next kind of preset that we have in the system is our 3D, our point cloud preset. So this preset is used for point cloud generation, meaning we're going to generate some kind of 3D model from this data. So as opposed to a single pass flight pattern that we saw with the Pix4D React preset, this is going to be a crosshatched flight pattern. So meaning it's not only going to fly, north to south over the scene, it's also going to fly east to west. And we're going to see those same defaults provided. So speed, altitude, overlap, survey, and gimbal angle will also be defaulted in this one as well. Now, the one piece with the 3D kind of point cloud generation preset is you're going to still need to gather some oblique imagery or some side-facing imagery in a manual flight plan. So this is stuff you're going to have to or need to fly manually, get some of that good oblique imagery so that the system has enough data to generate a really solid point cloud. This is definitely a more complex workflow. But again, just like the Pix preset, this does work with most of the data processing solutions that are out there. But again, this is a little bit more complex, as it's not necessarily just plug and play or point and shoot. I would still look into some best practices for this type of work, especially if you're a reconstructionist. This is where that kind of comes into play. So the use cases here on the 3D point clouds typically see for, again, damage assessment. This can also be used for volumetric assessment. And then also scene site reconstruction. So not necessarily just documenting the scene, but actually reconstructing it as a 3D model to be able to pull measurements and other bits of information from. The other two presets we have, and this one is kind of new, this is our SAR preset, our search and rescue preset. So this is preliminarily used for SAR operations. It's a similar flight, it's a similar flight path to Pix4DR preset, whereas it's a single flight pass. The difference here is it does not take any photos. This is essentially just flying a path in the air to support traditional ground units when looking for a target, whether that's, a missing person, whether we're doing traditional SAR operations, or even if it's, a hiding or fleeing, evading suspect. That's where this flight plan kind of comes into play. So again, it's got those same presets like we saw with Pix4D React, except we're not taking photos here. This is literally just meant to be flown low and slow to assist those ground units in trying to locate a target. The drone may not be the best tool when it comes to search and rescue for actually finding whatever it is we're looking for, but it can be a good tool in that it can step in and help eliminate large areas where our target isn't. And again, this is something that's available within the system itself. And then the last preset that's not really a preset, but this is the custom preset, where it allows you to input speed, altitude, your overlaps, your survey angle, your gimbal angles, whether you want this to be a 2D or a 3D flight pattern, whether you want this to take photos or not. And this will also work well with all those data processing solutions. Again, this is just completely customizable. So whether if you need to adjust any of those inputs, you have the ability to adjust. And we'll actually see that once we actually jump over to the mobile application. So from mapping missions, we're going to jump in now to our waypoint missions. So this is just giving the drone the ability to fly between preset points that you determine. So the only inputs that we're asking for when it comes to waypoints are speed and altitude. And essentially, this is going to allow you, the pilot, or even the people on the ops hub side of the house, to monitor a scene while the drone flies autonomously between 2 points. It's a very simple workflow. This can also accept GPS coordinates. So maybe if you get a last known location through GPS coordinates from dispatch, you're going to be able to set that as a waypoint as well. The limit used to be 100 waypoints. That has since changed. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's upwards of 500 to 1,000 waypoints can now be set. Obviously, that's kind of overkill. But this can be used for perimeter monitoring, sight and scene safety and security, and then kind of an automated patrolling. So where we've seen this used a lot is large-scale events, where we have a certain specific area that we need to be checking every 20 minutes or every half hour. Yes, we could fly it manually, but if we created a waypoint flight plan, this can be used continuously over and over again, in the future, 1, 2, 3 years from now, whatever the case may be. You can set this flight plan and allow the drone to fly while you monitor the camera. You can move the drone around on its axis. It's not going to deviate from that flight plan, but you're going to be able to pivot the drone around, move the camera around, and essentially worry about what you're looking for or what you're monitoring, as opposed to actually flying the drone between the points. The waypoints functionality right now is incredibly basic. Again, we're just asking for speed and altitude. Hopefully in the future, we have some more automated functionality when it comes to waypoints, such as setting a camera location to take a picture or to take a video. But right now, that is all manually done, and the drone is simply just going to fly between the 2 points, or you can even set it to hover at individual points. Jumping from waypoints, the last piece of this kind of puzzle is our points of interest in orbits. So for points of interest orbits, we're going to ask you for speed, altitude, and radius input, as well as the direction along the flight path, whether we're going clockwise or counterclockwise, and then a heading. We have several heading options, which we'll actually see once we get into setting up a flight plan. But again, this is kind of similar to our waypoints, where this is going to allow the user to monitor a scene while the drone flies autonomously, not necessarily between 2 points, but around this orbit. This will also accept GPS coordinates. So if you have a specific point that you want to focus on, have the drone fly to that point and then start orbiting around that point, that can very easily be set up as you're setting up the flight plan. And this is something that can be adjusted on the fly by simply providing controller input. So maybe our radius is too small or too large. We can very easily, by pushing in or pulling out on the right stick, we can adjust our radius. Or maybe our altitude's either too high or too low. By pushing up or down on the left stick, we can change the altitude on the fly as well without having to land, without having to come back into the flight planning menu to change anything. This is the one that can be adjusted on the fly. Of all the three kind of flight planning tools that we have, this is the only one that requires manual input to end. So right now, you set up an orbit mission. The drone is going to fly to that point and start orbiting around that point of interest until you tell it to stop. Perhaps in the future, we'll have the ability to set a certain number of orbits before the drone either moves on to its next task or before it comes back and lands. But right now, you have to give it that manual input to say, hey, stop orbiting and move on to the next item. So for the orbits, we're seeing use cases in using for Overwatch, whether that's on a large scale event or even on commercial or residential structure fires. We see that used in that site scene safety and security. And then a lot of times we're seeing this on traffic monitoring as well. Say we have an accident that wipes out a large intersection. We can have the drone overhead orbiting that intersection, kind of killing two birds with one stone, giving us Overwatch on the incident itself and also monitoring kind of the scene outside of the hot zone, if you will. So those are kind of the three pieces of flight planning as it relates to DroneSense.
So guys, I'm Alex. I also work with Josh at DroneSense. So we're going to talk about, or see in the app here, how these features Josh talked about earlier actually work. So we'll start out with waypoints, and all the buttons are going to be here on the left side of the map. One thing to make sure is that you are in the map view. If you are not in the map view, these buttons disappear. Switch over to map view, and then these buttons will come back. So I've selected waypoint here, and then I can drop this waypoint anywhere on the map. So if we're going to kind of simulate that maybe this house here nearby me is going to be part of an operation. Maybe this is a search warrant that we are going to execute, and we want the drone to fly to this house. Now, if this was in this type of environment, if you're flying the drone by hand, you could probably easily fly to that location. But if you're in a more congested area with lots of houses in a small area, you want to ensure that you're going to fly to the house directly and not overshoot it. And so using a waypoint is one great way to do this. So from here, I can specify how fast that I want the drone to fly to that location, what altitude I want to fly at as it gets there, ensuring that I'm going to clear any obstacles in the area. I can then decide whether I want it to go to the next waypoint or the next plane item, or to hover. So in the circumstance, again, where you're executing a search warrant, hover is absolutely the best choice. And I could add this to the plan, and when I hit the play button here, the drone is going, the app is going to ask me to which point to go to, which in this case I just have the one. As soon as I tap go now, the drone is going to take off, go to the 200-foot altitude, and fly at 22 miles an hour, and then hover over this point. That way, you're ensuring, again, that you're going to the correct house, and that's where it's going to stay. Now, if you had, a perimeter that you wanted to survey, so for instance, I've got this red line that's sort of drawn around my perimeter. I'm going to clear my map here. So we've got a clear button that we can select, and that will clear all the points off of here. And then I can use my waypoints, and I could drop them at intersections. Go to the next one, drop one here. And continue all the way around. And now when I'm ready to, I can tell the drone or the app to execute this flight plan, and it's going to complete the path around this perimeter.
So again, guys, this kind of goes back into that scene monitoring, scene security. Let's say, it's the holiday time. I'm sure we're doing a lot of Christmas tree lighting festivals and things like that, Festival of Lights in our different municipalities. We could pre-program this flight plan and have it saved either locally to the device or up to the cloud, which we'll kind of talk about at the end here. And every 15, 20 minutes, we can execute this flight plan and essentially, monitor the perimeter, or just do, again, just a basic kind of just checkup, basically.
So, and once we've put in all these different steps in here, we can look at the very top of the screen and see what the distance is that's traveling, and then how long that flight's going to take, and then how many batteries it's going to take. So there's no sense if this was a much larger perimeter, or you decided to fly this at a slower speed, you might end up needing more than one battery, which may not be what you're trying to accomplish. You might want to be able to do this all in one pass. So that if you need to make some modifications to the specific settings on this flight plan, you can do so and then be able to make the adjustments there. If for some reason you wanted to reorder this, you can tap on the reorder button. This also gives you the ability to delete different waypoints. So if I decided that I want to take the last one off, I can tap on it and hit delete. Then I can also rearrange them and move them up and down. And now we're changing how this flight plan is actually being executed. If I guess, Josh, you want to cover the saving of it to the end, or you want to go ahead and integrate that now?
Yeah, no, we'll talk about saving and everything there at the end. I just kind of want to go through kind of basic setups for each. And just, one thing to add here while we're looking at waypoints, you can also provide GPS coordinates to these specific waypoints. So let's say that you were given a last known location from dispatch. You can select a waypoint, drop it on the map, and then you can edit the coordinates to move exactly to those coordinates that were provided by dispatch, as long as you know the coordinate format you're receiving, and have the drone fly there autonomously.
So to change the coordinate format, you go up to the settings icon in the corner, and there's coordinate format. So I can change this to decimal, and then you can see in the flight planning section that it changed the decimal format. So you can quickly change it to whatever any of the 4 formats that we have available in DroneSense to change that. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these flight plans. So the next one we're going to talk about is orbit. Could also be used, in really any type of scene surveillance. Outdoor fire, again, maybe it's the search warrant that you want to survey before or during a execution of a search warrant. You can decide, what speed you want the drone to fly at, what altitude, and then you can adjust the radius several different places. You have the ability to drag this slider. You can use the plus and the minus. You can also come over to here and adjust the radius here. If for some reason you want to do it backwards, you can select counterclockwise. If you wanted to then also change which direction the camera is pointing, either from the to the center, outward, you can also choose along the path or manual. You also have the ability to change the location, updating it there. You can also use the directional arrows down at the bottom to make fine-tune adjustments if you're not able to use the map. If the map is not maybe granular enough and you want to do something a little bit more fine-tuning, you can just tap up and down on the arrows here. Hit add to plan. So once you put an orbit into a flight plan, it's going to continue to do this indefinitely until you tell it to come back home or till the battery is done. That's why you notice up here that the distance and the time and the batteries are indeterminate, because it's going to keep going until you tell it to stop. So this orbit most times is going to be executed by itself, or potentially at the very end on the list of the elements. You're not going to have this as the first element in your flight plan and then have other things after it, because it's not going to go to the next one. So I'm going to clear this off of here. So last one we've got is the survey, which is great for documenting a fire scene, a crash scene, some kind of crime scene. And we've got availability of selecting some of the formats, preset formats here that Josh mentioned. So the first one is Pix4D React. As we scroll down, we can see that it presets speeds for us, altitudes, the ground sampling distance, the gimbal angle set at 90 degrees. Our overlaps are already preset. Everything here is again preset for us. You do have the ability to change it. So if you needed more overlap for some reason, you can do that. Of course, you can see immediately in the screen here that now we're taking a lot more pictures than we were previously. All these white dots represent the pictures that are being taken. As we make adjustments to this, so if we take it back to the preset, which if you didn't notice here, let me drop that back on there, it automatically changed us from a preset to a custom. So we're no longer, if I set to Pix4D React, if I come in here and I make changes, it's now telling me that I'm using a custom preset output and not one of the pre-loaded ones. Again, white dots indicate where pictures are being taken. Blue line is the path. If this shape doesn't suit your needs, you can easily grab hold of any of these corners, modify the path. If you need to include another angle, you can tap on the plus and then be able to add another point and adjust this area, the boundaries of the flight plan. Let's go ahead and pick our 3D ortho. And you can see that now it adds the grid pattern where it's taking from 2 different angles. We'll go back here and see how it changed our presets. The gimbal angle is now 55 degrees. Overlaps are a little different now. And you can see we've now toggled on 3D mode. So let's add this to plan and just see what this looks like. So it's telling us, you know, how far this is going to, how far the flight distance is, how long it's going to take, and then how many batteries. Now you can do this over a large area or a small area. One thing I have found, if you're zoomed out too far and you try to drop a flight plan onto the map, I believe you're going to get an error. Let's see here. It's going to give you an error about not being zoomed in enough. So if you, so if you see the error there on the map, the current survey area is too large, please zoom in. So just something to keep in mind. If you're zoomed out too far, you might not be able to drop that survey. So just zoom in and drop your survey. You can still cover quite a large area if you need to. I've done large outdoor facilities before, mapping probably 100 acres or more for large events. And you can really expand this once you get on the map. Just you need to make sure you zoom in close enough. So you do have the ability to add multiple surveys into a flight plan. So here I've got a smaller survey followed by a larger survey. Hit add to plan, and you can see now that we've got two different surveys in this, and it's now calculating again how long it's going to take and how many batteries are necessary. Right now I'm connected to a Mavic Enterprise Dual. You can come in here and select a different drone. So if you have maybe an older, or maybe Mavic Enterprise Advanced, you can choose which camera is going to be used, and this is going to have an effect on some of the calculations based on the capabilities of the aircraft and things like that. You may see that these numbers change if you change the aircraft. Josh, anything else you want to cover on surveys?
Yeah, so just understand, guys, you can customize all these inputs to whatever you deem is appropriate. The presets kind of give you best practices when it comes to 2D and 3D flight plans. But if there's something that you want to change, you can very easily modify all of that information. Again, there's no limit to how many batteries these plans can be. You can essentially, have a flight plan that might take 5 to 10 batteries. The system is intelligent enough to know, hey, you're getting close to swapping a battery. You swap a battery, and then it will give you a notification to pick back up where you left off, essentially after battery swaps. But then kind of the next thing, Alex, that I want to talk through is kind of some of the limitations with not being able to do flight planning on the web. And again, what we talked about earlier was it is doable on the smart controller and on the Crystal Sky, and even on your iPhone. But as a lot of you know, there's just not a lot of screen real estate for doing something like screen sharing.
Yeah. So one thing I'll just illustrate here. I've gone ahead and hit the play button on this flight plan, and you can see that I have the ability to choose a specific section to start at. So I can choose any one of these circles and tell the drone to start there. What this is going to do is if you had to stop a flight plan for some reason and pick it up later, you've already got the imagery saved on your SD card. When you go back to restart that, you can choose where you want to start from. So you don't have to redo the entire flight plan. If you had to stop earlier for some reason, you can pick back up where you left off. So yes, unfortunately, right now we don't have the ability to do those flight plans from the website. It is definitely a critical need that I know, again, from my professional use and the agency that I work for or have worked for, it's definitely very helpful, very useful to be able to sit in your office and be able to do your flight planning ahead of time. Now, if you're on scene and you need to do flight planning and all you have is just your smart controller, for your DJI drone, there's no reason why you couldn't take, say, a larger iPad with DroneSense loaded on it and be able to do your flight planning and then save it to the website, and then be able to pull that back down to the remote. So the save feature is here. So we can take, call this whatever we want, and we can save this, make sure this toggles on and save it to the cloud. So this is going to be saved into your DroneSense account. And then if I go in here and I clear this, I can come back later, click load, and it'll come and look and see which flight plans you have in the cloud. So I can pull down mine, or I can take, here's one from Josh from the 14th, and I can load this and execute this flight plan, and then go back if I need to, pull down the one I had earlier. There, I've got the one that I had just done. So that's one workaround I'd say right now that you could implement, and just have a separate device. If again, the screen real estate on one of those smart controllers makes it very difficult to manipulate the map, just use another device, a larger iPad or Android tablet, and then do your flight planning in that, save it to the cloud, and then load it from the drone and execute it from there.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of our customers that are doing that right now, where they're using the iPad to do the flight planning, because again, you don't have to be connected to a drone to activate or to access this functionality. So you create the flight plans on the iPad, save them up to the cloud, and then they can very easily be pulled down to any other connected device on your account.
So I'm just going to demonstrate this real quick. I just disconnected my iPad from the drone. So right now you can see that I'm just have a blank map interface. I don't have any kind of video link because there's no drone on here. From this, you would just need to select which drone you're going to be using. So we can choose, maybe our Evo 2 Dual or Evo 2 Dual. Choose our camera, and then we can still do the same, flight planning. So if we decide we want to do waypoints, we can do that. Add to plan. Again, save it. Now here's one thing to point out, though, is it does give you this sort of error that you need to set a home point. Yep. So you see my markers changed a little bit. My buttons here changed. I have a home point now that I can add. So you just need to tap a home point somewhere on this map where you basically are going to be starting. This will be dynamic, so that when you actually start flying, it's going to change, but you just need to save that there for planning purposes. So I'm going to update this so that it knows where my home point is. Hit my save button. So we're going to just call this no drone flight plan because there's no drone connected to it. We've saved it. I'm going to simulate clearing it, being on a different aircraft. Reconnect my drone. Okay, hang on a second. Let me switch back to my map here. So we already see here it is, no drone flight plan. Hit confirm. And if y'all remember that I previously selected an Autel to plan this flight plan. Well, I'm not on Autel. I'm on a Mavic 2 Dual, and it didn't matter. The system automatically took care of converting anything that needed to be converted from the Autel to the DJI. So you can plan something and execute it with multiple types of drones if you have an organization with multiple drone types of brands of drones in your organization. So from here, hit the play button and then tell it to go. And that home point has been automatically adjusted, again, based on, where I am now. It's not, it's especially if you were planning this off site somewhere and you're not in the location, you could have that home point and be, you make that home point where your actual operation is going to take place. Any questions about any of this?
Hey, Alex, it's Mike. Just to clarify, when you put that home point in, then if you're doing it off-site, like you said, then you connect your drone, it'll automatically go back. It'll adjust that home point, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes. Yep. I
Okay.
think that basically that flight plan, when you're doing it sort of offline, as I was earlier, that's just helping in the calculations for your flight path or for your flight plan. So it can start doing some of those calculations and save it with the plan.
Okay. Got it.
But yeah, that home point is not, the drone's not going to go to that home point to start. So if for some reason you drop that home point where you were standing when you were planning this mission, this flight plan, it's not going to go to that point and then start from the home point. It's going to start from wherever you are, wherever that drone is currently sitting.
And guys, just to kind of expand a little bit more on some of the, the functionality and how some of the interoperability bits can be used here. I'm on the web console side of things on my computer. And, Alex is actually flying in his mission. But if I wanted to come in and, let's say I have some additional information that Alex may not have, like perhaps I know that there is an area that I want searched. I can come in from the web console and I'm going to drop a pin to Alex, letting him know that I want him to do a targeted search, over here in this area. So I'll drop that to him. He should see that pop up on his map. So now he can either, he can use the waypoints functionality to set a waypoint to fly directly to that area. Or if he wanted to, he could go ahead and be creating a search area around that. But let's say I have a specific area that I want him to search. What if I come in and I start and I just draw a specific search area? Hey, this is the area I want Alex to search. Draw it on the map for him. I hit save. And now again, from the website of the house, I'm giving my pilot information on an area I want him to go search. He can now create a flight path in that search area, and I will see his drone start to fly in that area and completing that flight plan. So there's a lot of back and forth that can happen between the Ops Hub side of things and the mobile application.
Hey, Josh, I got a question.
Sure.
So you're saying you just created this from the from the web application, right?
So I sent him that polygon shape. The purple dashed line is what I sent him, and then he went in and filled in that area with his flight plan.
Okay, got it. I was thinking you did something to create that. Okay, got it.
Not quite yet. No, I'm hopeful that we'll get back to that point very soon.
Okay. Yeah, I just misinterpreted what you just said, but now I got it.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, all he's doing is using the polyline tools within Ops Hub, and then drawing shapes, drawing this polygon shape on the map, and then I'm taking that polygon shape and then drawing the map.
So the other piece that I want to show you guys here from the web console side of things, once we've created a flight plan and it's saved to the cloud, if we come down to this planning section and go to flight plans, we'll see all the flight plans that we've created that are live in the mobile application. Now, again, nothing can ever be deleted in DroneSense without some work on our side. But what you can do is we can come in and we can archive these flight plans And once they're archived, they now will not be presented to the pilot on the mobile application anymore until we come in and we could have our archived plan shown, and then could very easily pull them out of archive so our pilot can pick up where he left off. Does that make sense?
Can you go back over just unarchiving? That was one area that I didn't understand very well.
Yeah, so if we just come into our filters, it looks
Josh,
like
that was a deficiency we identified last week when Coit was giving his presentation, that we are missing in DroneSense the ability to unarchive flight plans.
okay. So I will.
So,
So
that
that's
was-
a bug on the website. I will
Yes.
get that put back. That's an easy fix.
Yeah,
We'll just be under the filters. There'll be a show archived flights, and then you could very easily just unarchive it and then be back. So Mike, I'll make sure that gets that gets resurfaced.
Hey, Josh or Alex, this is Les Cruz again. I got one quick question and I need to bug out on you guys, and great presentation. Right where we're at, I created a flight plan, and I'm just going to say I dropped a circle on a building using the smart controller, saved it to the cloud. So then when I went back to try to look at that same flight plan in the web app, right at where you're at now, in the plans, I cannot view that. How can you view a flight plan that was created from a mobile app in the web app?
So the only way, and let me just turn my my screen back on here. The only way that can be done is if you choose to save the flight plan to the cloud.
Okay.
If you just save it locally. So Alex, if you want to show what that looks like, if you want to take back over the screen. So when he was saving his flight plan, you'll see he has a couple options, or well, one option really. You can leave that toggled on or off. If it's toggled off, it's just going to save that flight plan locally to the device. So it will not be surfaced on the web console. It actually has to be saved to the cloud before it's actually shown on the web.
Okay, and I did that, but what I'm saying is when I try to view that using the web app on the computer, I cannot see. I can find the flight plan that was created, but I cannot view it. So I have to be doing something incorrectly.
So you can see it here, but
yeah, I can see the tile like you're looking at there, but how do I now? I want to see that on the screen on the map.
So there is no that functionality is not there yet. This is all you get right now for seeing the flight plan on the web. You can see that it's there and archive it. It's kind of skeleton bare bones right now. It's not fully cooked out.
So basically it's a ghost image. It's there, but you can't see it.
Yeah, it's there to give you an idea that it's there, but there's no actual snapshot of the flight plan itself.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, just use your tablet or use whatever interface you got, Android or iOS tablet, and then you can load the plan from there. Hopefully, our developers will have the web interface available for too long, because it's definitely a critical need. Definitely recognize that it's just not currently active, it's just not working yet. Just something to add when it comes to the flight plans, we did talk about last week, and I'll just demonstrate it again, that you do have the ability to archive them from the app. Just know that once you archive it, right now we don't have a way to bring it back. But from any of these flight plans, you can come in and swipe to the left, and you have the ability to then tap and archive it. So you can see earlier that Josh had deleted my no drone flight plan. That's now gone from my list. I can come in and take out any of these other ones, archive it, and then it will disappear. So if you're on your tablet and you're trying to clean things up a little bit because you got a lot of old flight plans that you don't need anymore, you can archive those from the app.
Excellent. Alex, thanks a lot, man. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate all your time today. And again, any more questions, comments, feel free to reach out to Alex or I directly. Cheers, everybody.